Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are very welcome to this first episode of the podcast I haven't thought up a name of yet. Joining me for this discussion on not only upcoming events, but also past events, and this very, very special topic today, which is, of course, the ERPVP current rule set, is, of course, Bron, the Terror of Mag, the Goat. Bron, you're very welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course, I'm Braun, you probably already know me. Former mech shooter, and now I play in the com scene.
So, in other words, it's a slight downgrade then from before, is it?
Yeah, the life was better before I started playing this competitively.
The star of many Reddit posts.
Well, and next up we have, of course, Frosty, the man with 15 different twin blades, all with different ashes of war to get the right mix up. Of course, multiple tournament winner Frosty. How are you keeping?
Dude, I've been great, man. It's a pleasure to be on your cast, dude. Thanks for having me.
Now, outside of whatever else, is there anything else that I missed in my introduction there? Because you have quite a few tournaments under your belt, Frosty.
Yes, indeed, dude. Tournament enjoyer, dude. And once again, been playing the game since 2009. Never stopped, dude. Premium off-meta enjoyer, dude. Moving on down the line.
And there we have it. We have, of course, the wonderful Kjell, who played Greatsword before it was cool. And then in the other list of bad decisions he made, he is currently running the Duelist Event Network. Kjell, is there anything I missed in my introduction for you?
No, I think the big thing now is I haven't been playing myself in too many events because you abandoned the scene and left me to run it. So I haven't had as much time to play as probably most of the other people on this podcast. Been trying to run things and expand and do things better than the people who were here before.
Wouldn't be hard now, let's be completely honest with you. But moving
Frankly,
swiftly
you made the job easy on that side.
And of course we have the wonderful Shieldpoke, another person who's been playing these games for quite a while. Shieldpoke, of course, all of these people are part of the Ruleset committee, but Shieldpoke, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, hi. I haven't been playing as long as Frosty, but I think I started in 2016 around in Dark Souls 3, so I'm like a premium DS3-oid.
Disgusting.
Vintage,
Disgusting.
as it were.
Absolutely gross.
I'm a League of Legends main who plays Souls PvP on the side. And that's about it. So I've been playing Eldenring for a while as well.
Nice, good. And you were actually in one of the first tournaments we held as well. It was that
yes,
one match.
I think it was the first tournament you guys ever held, actually.
No, I think that would have been the, if memory serves, the first one we ran was the Ruleless one. I don't think you were in that one, but I know you were in the first Festival of Combat tournament.
That's true.
Yourself and Fury duking it out. That was a fun time.
Yeah.
But
it was.
Moving swiftly along. So obviously this is a Soulsborne competitive podcast. So not only do we deal with Eldenring, we're also going to deal with pretty much all of the games in the series, except the ones that I don't know too much about, which is unfortunately Sekiro PvP, because wasn't there a tournament held for Sekiro PvP at one point? Someone did host
it. It only exists with a mod, right?
Yeah,
there's a mod, yeah.
And it's like
very
pretty
similar,
new, isn't it?
Very similar to Eldenring, actually.
That's what I've heard.
No, no. I mean, in terms of like, I was trying to make a joke, but it fell flat. I'm sorry.
But
no, but seriously,
we're sorry. We're gonna keep up with your wit.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
But either way, the what I will say about the other games is obviously Armored Core is a little bit beyond me as well. Although Kjell, you've been asking some questions to that crew as well. Is there anything interesting, any interesting events that are coming out from those guys, or anything upcoming?
There is a week 1 tournament that is being organized.
Very brave.
I wish the best for them for doing something on week 1. They have 96 entrants. It is double elimination.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I hope the best for them, but I am I've played, I've been a long time fan of Armored Core, and I was one of the people that was shocked to see the series returning. So I'm excited to play the games, but I'm definitely going to be waiting to see what we launch with before making too many plans. But I mean, it'll be cool. I hope it turns out well, but the launch of Eldenring hasn't exactly given me a bunch of confidence on what the launch of Armored Core is going to be like in terms of PvP scene.
What could possibly go wrong, Jelly? What could possibly go wrong?
2-minute disconnects with EAC.
No.
Oh man.
Just imagine the robot walking at you with 2 pikes.
Jesus Christ.
But we'll start off the list of events that have happened. Luber did do a small Demon Souls event quite recently. Unfortunately, there was no challenge and I didn't manage to catch it. Apparently quite slow, so not very much happening on the Demon Souls remastered front. But keep your eyes peeled. I'll definitely be keeping an eye going forward to see if there's anything going on that front. And DS1 is having a very, very busy week, a couple of weeks of it by the looks of things. We have It Is the End versus Zaki, which happened just very recently. Zaki did very, very well at holding off like the It Is the End, who took a very strong lead earlier on, and Zaki slowly clawed back, but unfortunately was not able to make it. Zaki, of course, has been in around here before, really nice dude, and haven't been acquainted with It Is the End, but apparently he's multiple tournaments under his belt, so definitely some stiff opposition there. I assume none of you are aware of any of the DS1oids.
Oh, I'm in a server with them. Actually, actually, and are you there as well or no?
I don't believe so. Not yet.
There's like a semi-private Dark Souls 1 server on Discord. They're it's actually pretty active, honestly.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear that they're doing well. And speaking of doing well, they have a $600 tourney coming up on the 9th of next month. So that's going to be something they're definitely pretty active by the looks of things. And it's delighted to hear. This is, of course, going to be on Prepare to Die. It is the Das, isn't it? Isn't that how you say his name, if I recall correctly?
Dasmans, I believe.
Dasmans, yeah, he's going to be hosting that over there. I'll probably stick a link in the description of the video for the upcoming events. But no one's heard of any other events that are going on or interesting goings on over in the Prepare to Die side of things, I'd assume.
Not a thing I'm paying attention to. Sorry.
I don't know.
I mean, I can look at the server really fast, but I don't think so.
Well, as we wait, unfortunately, there's been nothing on the Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin or otherwise, and there's nothing that I've heard of that's going on there. There is whispers of something in the future, but as of right now, unfortunately, there are no events or anything of the sort planned. But looking forward then on to Bloodborne, quite recently, Scorched Knight did make a little bit of a stir, which has just recently been uploaded as well, and myself helping out in the losers bracket was, of course, the Hunter's Frontline, which happened the 29th of last month, and a couple of first to 10s going on there. FNC doing an absolutely phenomenal job, getting knocked down early to Crunchy Cheese and then tearing her way through the losers bracket from round 1 all the way across to beat Foxy Hooligan. They let the hooligans in apparently over that side and managing to take him out in a very strong. Not only beat him once, but beat him twice. Very, very impressive stuff. And there's going to be another Bloodborne event this weekend over on this channel here. If you're watching, it's going to be the Endercord World Tour. It's the start of the Bloodborne leg of that, and that's going to be on the 20th of the 8th. It's EU, ME, and RU only. So that's going to be a fun time for everyone. Keep your eyes peeled for more news on that. And I think DS3 doesn't have very much going on. Obviously, B-Dubs, who I see there lurking away in the chat, has set up a new server. So I'll be excited to see if there's any events being planned on the horizon for the old DS3, our beloved. But ER, lads, before we crack on with some of the questions I have for you. We, of course, had Veg Georgie's tourney on the 5th, and Frosty, you were in that tournament, my friend.
Yes, I was indeed, dude. So overall, I think it went well. They were very lax on the rule set. Overall, I think the only things that were banned were like pikes and grand sacks, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
And a few other like consumable, stuff like radiant baldachins and all of that nonsense. But no, overall it was very entertaining. Veg, of course, did a spectacular job hosting and commentating, and it was a pleasure to participate in. It's very
Yeah, it
fun.
was. You had quite a little run yourself through losers bracket. I took a peek.
Yeah. I dropped in the first round to a tree spear user.
Happens.
I got 3-shot, which is very cool and epic.
Kjell as old as time.
And then I ran it all the way back in the losers, and then I ended up fighting who I dropped to, and ended up taking him. But then I got too overzealous against my man Clevy, dude. I have a lot of respect for him, and he managed to take me out.
Well, you did
But,
manage to
yeah.
take out Charles on your streak, and as a fellow Irishman, I have to say I'm deeply upset at you. In top one Ireland, don't take him down, bro. Come on. Someone has to
Damn,
has to rep. But yeah,
True.
congrats to Snapcaster for taking the win on that one, and of course Marco taking second place. A really, really solid tournament, and good on the Ape Station boys for giving it their finest. And there was another tourney on the 6th, the day after, the Arithmetic Pulse 1v1v1. I unfortunately didn't manage to catch it, and there is no footage of it. Nor is there a proper bracket. The Ruleset was very interesting. It was played on the rooftops of Leondell, and it looked like it was going to be quite a doozy. So,
How do you even set up a bracket for a 1v1v1?
I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest with you. From the best of my understanding, they had to do everything off of challenge, is the way that they did it. So they randomized who was in it, and then away you go. That's to my understanding. I've not spoken to anyone who's seen it, which is rather unfortunate, but I'll definitely be chatting Arithmetic over the next little while. Again, PlayStation's been busy, man. PlayStation has been very busy. And
So has the Xbox.
yeah, the box tourney. Do you want to give us do you have any of the how did the other last events go so far? 'Cause
Was the last event the one pre-patch, or was it one, or did they do another?
I believe it was a
tournament after that?
pre-patch. It was the pre-patch one.
Oh,
Ura was hosting it.
Yeah. Ura is now gone from the server.
That's
unfortunately, I think,
unfortunate.
yeah, Ura really did. I think he brought a lot of energy to the tournament in terms of casting.
Yeah, he was very good. I was very, very impressed.
Yeah, it
with
reminded
him.
me of like more, how would you call it? More like casual, like fighting game casting, which I like a lot. Very energetic person. I enjoyed the tournament a lot. But who won that one? I believe it was Coma who ended up winning that one.
I believe so. I kind of watched through the VOD and was more watching for the casting than anything else.
Yeah.
Again, but the box is super active. They have their 2v2 currently being set up, if memory serves. I don't have a date for that, and I know that they have their regular 1v1 tournaments being set up as well. So I'm not sure what the exact dates are. I could just very quickly check, in fact, for the box. So if you are on Xbox and you want to play some Elden Ring, the box server is, of course, one of the places you can go. And I'm just checking here. Where on earth would they have it hid? Announcements. There we go. So I'm just taking a quick look here. So there's one the 9th of September, the same date as the DSR tournament at 6 p.m. That's the September Wumbo. And then the 1v1, that's the 1v1. And then the 2v2, I don't think they have announced a date for that yet. But I know that is something that they are currently working on. So that's the Xbox. That's, of course, Veggie as well on PlayStation is, of course, going to be doing another tournament on September 1 for the PSN side of the PlayStation Eldenring PvP. The Ape Station crew, that's going to be on the 1st of September, if memory serves. So they're going to be doing that then as well. But then PC, Kjell, Jelly.
Yes.
This is your wheelhouse because you're the one organizing all of the upcoming ones.
Yeah, for Den, so last month we're starting to start more regular events instead of just only doing the big event at the end of the month.
Gotcha.
But, with the patch happening, that kind of threw us for a loop, and even just like getting the mods and all that working that we rely on has taken a little bit. But we're starting to resume that again. So this weekend we're doing a warm up for the new rule set on Saturday at 10 o'clock Pacific time.
Phenomenal.
Then after that, the last week of every month is the Festival of Combat that you need to qualify on the ladder for. And then after that, it'll probably resume the weekly gauntlets that we've been running, which are typically smaller events with sillier rule sets, like more casual. And then we also have been running fight clubs weekly. So
That nice stuff, and I have to say the Uggs down patch tourney was very entertaining to remember fondly getting 3-shot by something with, what was it? How many frames was Gugs again? 12, 13? Which one was it? I can't remember.
too many.
Oof.
Too many frames. It needed to be faster.
Obviously. Well, it kept it in the meta, you know. Uggs being in the meta even for a little bit was certainly a surprise to everyone. But, gentlemen, I think that's the roundup. Are there any other events for any of the games that you all are keeping an eye out on for the foreseeable? Are there any other tournaments I've missed in the current rundown? Please feel
None
free to
that I am
share.
aware of.
There was the one from the German server, that
Oh.
space
Oh.
one. Surprising.
Oh yeah. Ondo.
Who is
Who
this?
Yeah,
was the
Ando's
finals?
been
What was the
trying to
finals
run
match?
stuff.
It was space versus roof.
It was a Ruth classic matchup. I think. Oh, was it? There was a recent Dark Souls 3 event actually that you missed. It was the Helping Hand server. Oh my God! They also did a sword. Oh no, they also did a sword and board tournament recently as well for Eldenring. And
Okay.
they,
That was
Off of
KH
that-
Knight's event, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I'm not-
That was a good while ago, though, if memory serves. I know he got it uploaded
No,
recently.
they had the Helping Hand server did a continuation of that, which just happened.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a follow-up.
Gotcha.
Oh, how many days ago was that? I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago, and I
It was
ended up
this
taking
weekend,
the B bracket of that one, and then the A bracket was won by Space, I believe.
Space.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's the Dark Souls 3 tournament that Helping Hands also hosted. I'm 99% sure Dimka won that
Yeah,
one.
Dimka won.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That would sound about right. Of the current play, it was an EU only tournament, was it, or was it NAEU?
No, they
No,
do full region.
It was
Oh,
full
okay.
region, but it was like mostly EU players, I think, that were in the bracket.
Yeah, for a DS3 tournament now, it's going to be time dependent on who shows up, I suppose. Was there a prize pool
Yeah.
for that?
It's like a
It was like $15
$20
Steam card?
Steam card.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'll just mark that down for later. Then I'll keep an eye on what that crew are doing going forward. But yeah, I think that's the full roundup of the events. So the Helping Hand crew were doing their events. Do they have anything upcoming as you guys are in the loop?
Not yet anything talked about, but there's certainly going to be something next month.
Okay.
They probably just haven't decided what.
I'll keep an ear out then for that, and hopefully the next podcast we'll be able to give a once over on how that one did. So, gentlemen, ladies, all here. So quite recently, as we move on into the meat, the potatoes, the crux of the issues. Quite recently, there was a patch, and it was a little bit of a shake-up from what we've seen before. And I just, Prob September Stepping Stone Tourney says B-dubs. Keep me posted. If you keep me on the loop, I'll be sure to advertise it, dubs. So just give us a shout on that one again. But so the game has changed a lot, and I can imagine that brought up an awful lot of problems for you lot.
Right.
Who've been doing
Well,
the Ruleset committee, because everyone here is, of course, part of ERPVP's Ruleset committee. So, based off of the game as it was before and comparing it to now, what was the main changes you feel that needed addressing in the Ruleset, or what did unrestricted play, I suppose, look like that needed to kind of be reined in? We'll start with BronDaGoat. What are your opening thoughts on Patch the Firm?
Fully unrestricted, people just decided to be cheaters and pulled out the pikes and the nagis and the grand sexes.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to cut that out right away. Like one day was enough to decide, yeah, these are obviously still broken.
It was a fun day.
Moved on to stomp claimants. Yeah, also very balanced. And then people were mostly handshaking, playing normal stuff, because we knew there was no point in playing that since it was going to be banned anyways. But like people are trying spears, clean rot, two-handed thrusting sword. There were things that people stopped playing, like the halberds and the CGSs, but now it's coming back a little bit after the new rules.
Yeah, poor halberd men.
PSSS stops rolling, so that's a big plus because not a lot of stuff can stop people from rolling in. Like fists got weaker, the strike ones like Cess's Star Fist, and the other ones got a little bit better. Like the entirety of meta got a bit more playable. Like still not good enough to compete, but it's something you can use and not just die right away.
Insta lose, yeah.
PSGS got a little bit weaker because everything can roll in on it. But yeah, the biggest changes were spears went from overpowered to unbeatable. Thrusting sword close to that as well. And the other stuff didn't change much. I guess Kibas got a lot better. Now they're very good. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that people were really raving about, like sword and board and whips and all those things, after you play against it for like 15 minutes and you realize what you can do, they just go back to being pretty weak.
Gotcha. Well, that's the BronDaGoat. And then Frosty, what are your thoughts? I know you've been pretty positive so far about the patch, but I'm curious as to how your feelings about the unrestricted game, and I guess like player behaviors with it is.
Yeah, so like Bron did a really good summary, probably better than I could in relation to the unrestricted stuff, because I didn't have much time to play on ladder when that was actually in effect, right? But I have been playing a lot as of late now with the changes, and I was playing a little bit before the changes happened, about maybe a day or two before those dropped. And you know, as I said in my intro, dude, you know, I'm the off meta guy, and this update has brought a lot of those things to actually be usable and actually decent in the right hands, even against some of the top players on the top setups, you know? And like that's really the thing that I enjoy the most about this update in particular, is just that everything is able to force respect now, which was not the case before, you know, with the passive poise in its previous state. Because if you were using a one-handed light weapon or something, you know what I mean, there was still the poise chipping, you know, there was poise counting, all of that. But out of neutral, you really had to play extraordinarily passive and extremely safe, you know what I mean? And now, you know, things like, so for example, if you take this matchup, you know, like one-handed straight sword versus power stance straight sword, right? Like prior, you had zero chance.
Yeah.
Because you had nothing to force respect on the side of the power stance user. They could just walk all over your head and you had no recourse, you know? But now you actually break in one hit. So they actually have to respect that, you know? And I think that's a huge thing that people aren't looking at with this update, is just that respect is actually a core fundamental again. And even supplementally to that, spacing is a core fundamental again too, which I absolutely adore, right? So that's kind of my takeaway. And brief takeaway, of course.
And then in terms, of course, of player behaviors, then unrestricted, if we are assuming that they're going in to win, how do you feel that that's changed? I suppose just as a very quick follow up, and then we'll move on.
I probably can't speak too much on that, because I haven't played enough against like all of the top players, you know. So that'll definitely come with time. Like Poke and Bron would probably be able to tell you more on that front. So I'll leave it up to them.
Magnificent. Well, we are going to move very quickly on to someone who feels my pain whenever an update's happen. It's of course a Kjell, and obviously you're kind of the odd one out, because you're going to be looking at this. Hopefully. If I've told you anything, you're going to be looking for this from a rule set perspective and a tourney organizing perspective, and I thought it was kind of important to get that perspective in as well. So how do you feel that this is going, that the change to everything? So for context, I ran 8-week event, a 4-week event, then with the top 8 bracket at the end of it. That was completely unrestricted for last patch. And I was shocked at the amount of variety that there actually was, even though BHS Clean Rot still cleaned house. There was still an awful lot of things that could even compete with those top tier things. But do you feel that an unrestricted tournament now would look very, very different from that, or how do you feel? How do you feel things would pan out?
In a way, no. Like some of how it would play out, just like the game plays slightly differently now with everything poise breaking in one. But even your event, one of the big things that comes up is a lot of the tournament scene doesn't necessarily always try hard as much as possible. Like there's a lot of people who, even in your unrestricted tournament, were playing complete like ladder legal setups.
Yeah, for sure.
Which are undoubtedly putting them in a disadvantage, but they want to do that.
Yeah.
So you always see a lot of that. And 1.09 was pretty nice for tournaments where there was enough variety in the top level of meta that you were seeing a lot of people, pull out CGS, Halberd, and all the other like normal setups you see. But it was just more natural variety, and that will always be there just because it's like talking about player behavior. Like people just kind of will play what they want and then try and do as well as they can with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But in terms of high level like meta, like what I expect to see winning things, it's really a lot of the same. And if anything, it's there's a couple of things like Bron was mentioning, like the halberds and whatnot, that don't seem like they have as much of a niche anymore, where the one hit poise break that they had isn't it doesn't exist anymore.
Gotcha.
Or it doesn't exist as like a unique aspect of them. Like other weapons can do the same thing, but like not be slow.
Yeah.
So really for tournaments, I kind of expect more of what we saw before, but like possibly the high level having a little bit less variety.
Okay. So that's an interesting takeaway. And then currently writing a doc as we speak to try and figure out the game is our Shieldpoke. Not that he'd never do that before.
Speaking of, I've written multiple documents for Dark Souls 3 and Eldenring. Actually, I wrote one right now. Not right now. I'm not kidding. It's not about the patch though. It's just like general. Like, you know what? Here, I can just link it.
Yeah, link it. We'll take a look at that after we
look at
finished
it.
up.
Look at it later. But like, look at how do I share this? 1 second. Sharing people with access and link can view. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. This should work.
Thank you.
Anyways, what do I think about the patch? Unrestricted. Let's be honest. If everyone's tryharding, it'd be PS Spikes or PS Noggies. Personally, I prefer PS Noggies, but hey, it's gonna be a spear one way or the other. In terms of rule set stuff, I mean, I think everyone else before me covered it. I just like to talk about how the game kind of feels right now. Like, to be honest, I feel like the game, yes, off meta stuff is more viable. That is true. But and I think that's very important to the longevity of the game, that things are usable in the wild and that you see more of these things crop up. But for me, I've always been like a competitive player, I guess, in any of the games I've played, which means I only concern myself usually with like the mid-tier weapons and above. And to me, Souls games have always been the most tier list base games in the series, just basically due to the lack of systems and mechanics in place that can help you outplay even a player of similar skill level, right? Because if you play a fighting game, like you have more knowledge of them in the matchup. You can, depending on what game you play, you can use that game's mechanics. Maybe it's like pairing or whatnot to help you get an advantage. So you can even beat a higher tier character with a lower tier character. I don't think it works like that in Souls games, and I don't think it ever will for like top level play anyway. So yes, that feels better, but I think the flow of the game has changed so much. And to be honest, it's a great benefit to me. Like if I were to continue competing, it would be a great benefit to me. As Frosty said, spacing does matter a little bit more. I don't think it's all of a sudden returned to be like to being a fundamental, because that's how I've always played my game, just through spacing. But yeah, it's a great benefit to me, but I really do feel like a lot of it feels super awkward, I guess what I'm gonna say. Like after you play Dark Souls 3, where you have significant advantages when you get hit, or sorry, when you hit someone, Eldenring feels very finicky
Yeah.
because your advantage is so, even if you do have plus on hits, your advantage is so illusory. Elusive. I guess it's hard to press on because your advantage is so small.
Mm.
And also on top of that, I just want to bring up the Ashes of War in this game right now are absolutely out of this fucking world. Like, yes, you can outplay them always, but the fact that between your that frame advantage not being so high or even non-existent, combined with Ashes of War being in the game, it just creates a very um, it doesn't create a satisfying game flow for me, I guess.
Okay.
But I think the patch is it's fine, I guess. At the end of the day, it just needs some fixes in terms of a follow-up bonus, not poise breaking and all this stuff. But and Ashes were all obviously need tuning.
That
But
is for
I think
sure, and that's kind of, I think, one of the things that is it's a good first step. It's just it's going to depend on implementation further down the line, I think, is my current line, and how much you trust them to actually do it. But I would like to take the opportunity to open up the floor to everyone. If there's anything anyone else has said, now is your time to that you'd like to comment on or move in on. Now is the time to do it, and go for it. If there's any other thoughts on the topic, go forth and conquer it, man.
About maybe like the patch in general, you mean?
Just on the patch in general, or anything over the course of the conversation that's happened thus far. It's a very standoffish. I say something, now it's my turn. Now is the time to have a back and forth. If there's anything to chat about or ask questions among yourselves, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, the patch has definitely been a shakeup. It's an interesting thing. Like the way Souls games have always worked, it's not like Shieldpoke mentioned fighting games. Like, fighting games are designed very intentionally where it's like you have a character like Dulcim in Street Fighter who's got like the super long limbs and super long pokes. So they make sure that like they offset that with weaknesses. And, okay, he doesn't have like invincible wake up options and all these other things like designed into the element of the game. And for us, we've got a PvE game where we have a pile of weapons that are made just to look cool and be okay in like PvE, and then we kind of have to like sift through the crumbs and like find something you can actually hit another person with a brain with. And at the end of that, like you have something that can have one button that you can use, sort of a thing. And you end up with this really weird balance. And the patch has definitely made things where like they aren't necessarily good, like they weren't things that we were looking at before, but because they at least poise break, like the thing like Frosty said, like you can at least have them respect you and not just walk through what you hit them with because it wasn't good and it did do a lot of damage, and then just be like, you do like 250 damage, which is maybe like normal balance for the game, but guess what, power stance just does like double damage, so I just walk through it with PSSS or something like that. So I think the patch has done a lot to help things feel better, but it's still at the core like a lot of the weird balance of things are just kind of all over the place. And we're doing what we can with what is in the game.
yeah, like that's what I'll agree with. I feel like it's a lot more. I was playing Arena a bit. I thought it was like a lot more fun because you can actually beat Arena players with like random garbage now, and I think it's pretty fun. But yeah, I don't think you'll be seeing Sword and Board do particularly well in tournaments.
I think, genuinely, I think it's too early to tell with those things. It's.
I mean, it's
there's players
possible.
out there that can transform something that seems bad into something that is absolutely incredible, myself included. So stay tuned for that, guys.
Oh no, he's cooking, boys. He's cooking. Bron, do you have any thoughts yourself, Bron, on anything that's been said?
It might have gotten better at like the arena level, but like at the level that we play at, for me the game feels way worse because everyone knows that most people know the best play, and the best place to press your button when you're on stun. So it makes for a really awkward game. On top of the roll-ins, like roll-ins right
disagree with
now
that.
are really awful to play against because anything that you do, your opponent just rolls into you, and there's a bunch of crouching attacks that you cannot react to. So then you need to make a choice whether to
Right.
jump it, and a lot of
Azure
them you can't
Evening
even
was
run away from.
complaining about the same thing, where like people would just run away and then randomly roll and do pressure rolling attack, and they seem very annoyed about that kind of gameplay loop.
I think Frosty had a thought there. You said there was a disagreement. I'd like to
Yeah,
invite you to bring it forward.
Yeah, I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, just playing off what Bron said there, you know, how it's like, he said when you lose priority after every hit, you know. That, I feel, is a huge misconception with this update, and I'd like to bring this front and center. It's not that you lose priority, you only, and here's the thing, right? Is if you mash a subsequent attack, say you're on Power Stance Straight Sword, so you do another L1. Well, that's not a good example because those are broken right now and they're not following the degradation system.
No,
so like
they're
Shamshir,
working
for
how
example,
everything
okay?
should.
So, right. Yeah, dude, that's debatable. We'll have to see how From handles it, of course, dude. It's tough to say one way or the other. But if we look at two-handed Shamshir, for example, right? If you press R1, and then you press R1 again, aka your interpretation of losing priority, because it gives the opponent the chance to retaliate, right? Therefore, that results in a trade, okay? In which case, you, the person on the two-handed Shamshir, is still ahead because you've done more damage to them.
Wait,
sure, you're forced to
Actually,
disengage.
Shamshir can get out. It's like one of the few weapons you can do
Shamshir
R1
doesn't
and
trade
one and get
ever.
out. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a bad example. You guys get what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, depending on the weapon. So, say a weapon that doesn't have that property, okay? So, you're still trading. You're still getting ahead, right? You have the damage advantage there. Sure, you're forced to disengage, but that's just one of the many options that you actually have after securing hit stun now, right? You can literally... It's just that the game has changed in that it's actively disincentivizing you from mashing the same button over and over again. Literally, if you do anything else, you have the potentiality and the opportunity to actually regain and keep that in the vast majority of cases. And there's so many things that you can actually utilize now, like unlock jumpaways, backstepping actually exists in the game after securing hit stun. Backstep attacks like Bron, like you were saying, that you're annoyed with, rolling attacks actually having a use when they're not, when they're on a weapon that doesn't break 133 poise. Like, all of these things are things that people are completely missing with this update. Like, shields have gotten so much stronger. Once again, let me throw this example in too. If you say you're using sword and board for an example, right? You land your R1, you secure hit stun. Oh, dude, it's always the best opportunity to mash out of hit stun, right? On the opponent's side. Oh, no. I parried you. Oh, swapped Misery Chord? Oh, well, you're dead now. All of a sudden, mashing out of hit stun isn't the best opportunity in the game, right? Like,
yeah, but
all of these things,
You're taking parry, which is like probably the most broken thing in the game, and using it as a solution. That's like saying just use BHS to dodge 3 spears.
I gave plenty of other examples there too. That's another example, right?
For the
be
record,
honest,
he did. I think this the idea. The idea that Frosty is trying to give out, just to back him up here for a second, is that there are options out of stun that the other person has outside of it. And even I know myself, I look at the game and I think, I managed to hit someone. I know that they're going to mash. I pre-space out the next attack, and then I come back in and swing them again. Or alternatively, I have an offhand, so I just completely get rid of the entire system entirely. I'm going to stay out of whether or not I like it or not, but that is a thing that you have options in terms of things that you can do, and that you
your
can
offense
punish
get
the other person.
interrupted. If you go for R1s and L1s, and your R1 isn't tier 2 stun, you'll get interrupted.
It depends on the weapon
On most
combination.
things.
So I'd actually had to throw in something in this discussion. I think the problem with what I guess both of you are saying kind of is like I think Braun is correct in that you don't. Yes, you do lose some sort of advantage while pressing forward. I think the actual problem isn't that you mash out of hit stun or that there's and the solution isn't that there's a bunch of options out. It's that if you hit someone, it's like I don't understand genuinely how you're supposed to continue attacking. Like all of the options Frosty said can be defeated by walking backwards, and that's the thing that pisses me off, really, really
Or
bad.
rolling in, because your backswing does no poise damage. Like that's my biggest issue. People just roll into you with like thrusting swords, with Nagakibas, with PSGS, and like you're put at such a huge advantage from attacking. Because now they're in
Yeah,
your
I
face with an
agree.
8
Like there's
frame, with a
basically
12 frame attack.
Frosty's. I think everything Frosty named is a counterattack, but there's no reason to keep attacking is not a good option in my opinion.
Well, I'll throw in this too as an option, and like I said before, you know, the trade puts you're ahead. You know, if you go for the trade, you're quite literally ahead.
No,
You're
I'm
just
saying as
forced
the
to disengage
person.
after.
I'm just saying that as the person being hit.
Oh, okay, restate what you're saying then.
Basically, what I'm saying is, if you are the person being hit here,
Yeah,
the other person who just hit you, how does the other person press advantage?
the person being hit or the aggressor.
The person being like, okay, if you're the person being hit, how does the other dude keep pressuring after you hit them? Sorry, after like. Sorry, I'm messing this up.
It's
You're
Basically,
okay, don't
you're
worry,
getting-
dude, don't
you're-
worry,
Okay,
dude,
you're
don't
getting hit, right? You're getting hit, right?
Yeah.
How does the other dude keep going after?
Depending on the setup, of course, you can. And I wrote out a list of these things too. So like, you have trading as an option for one. You have
Right.
running status. You
Mhm.
have backstepping in towards them and out. Because what's really interesting with this too, especially with the backstab changes, you can, especially it's most common when you're using a type 2 hit stun weapon. So like if you do like CGS for example, and then somebody mashes out and then you backstep into them, you can bait the backstab grab and get a backstab on them, which is a very sick interaction. And also backstepping out is completely 100% viable in a lot of circumstances, and it actually wins against mashing, like subsequent mashes too. You're completely safe, of course, depending on the weapon. Also, shields, once again, blocking as a disengage, and guard countering actually exists now with the
Wait,
the
you're
R1
naming-
degradation system.
You're naming
Uh,
everything that as a response to them mashing. I'm saying, what if
Yeah.
the other guy just walks backwards?
Or throws the flaming strike.
Like, if they just like, that's my problem. It's like, okay, it's good that all these are answers to matching. That's fine. I think that's cool. Whatever. But my problem in the game is fundamentally different. I don't think it's interesting to hit them once and then you reset back to neutral. So what I've been started doing Ashes of War shit, like to try to cheese. But like all of these Ashes of War, like they're very good. They're 10 times better in the defensive positioning than they are in offensive positioning.
Yeah, and that's a fair point too, and that therein lies an issue with the Ash of War system by default, right? Yeah, and I'm in complete agreement with you on that one in
I
particular.
can tell you like how my fights with Space evolved. Like we were playing normal, and then at a point we just realized, right? We're just rolling in on each other, and then we just started doing flaming strike mirrors, and it's kind of what I expect the game to become because it's your only tool to stop the roll-ins, pretty much, except for PSSS. So I do expect the game to become just flaming strike mirrors, and then you're either like
There's stuff
hoping
that
they
can-
roll in on that or
There's stuff
jumping,
that can
and
poise
it's kind of a
Flaming
shit
Strike, no?
show.
You can.
What?
What was that?
Are there any Ashes of War can tank Flaming Strike right now?
I
You
think
can
any
use
of the
Storm
hyper
Assault,
armor.
but you need to do it
Yeah.
early. We were wrong during the meeting. At least on Spear, it doesn't have frame 1 hyper armor because I was starting animation, I would get staggered sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably depends on the weapon type, the frame that
No.
hyper armor comes on.
Because it's weird and like different weapons get different versions of ashes. There's
Yeah.
some that are
So
framed
for
in hyper
instance,
Spear
Barbaric
gets hit
Roar.
late.
For instance, Barbaric Roar. For instance, on I believe it's Katars in particular, has some very very fast startup when it comes to its hyper armor. On top of
Yep.
like a 15 frame attack, which is just like,
that's not confusing to learn.
frame 6. It's frame 6 Siri, exactly. It's kind of a little bit goofy. So like obviously we're looking there are going to be outliers and they are going to become the better options. I will ask. Yeah. There's a few more questions I do have regarding the rule set.
No, go for it, dude.
And I'll just give you all an opportunity to kind of finish up where we're at. I do think that it's kind of you're having an interesting chat, and I think it's important we have it.
Yeah, for sure.
I was talking about Storm Assault. I do think it will be banned in the future because it's such a strong option that you can just do and it tanks everything. And a lot of the hyper armor stuff works like that, which is sad that your answers are too strong. So you have to choose between having things that are too strong or not having answers to things. It's kind of awkward. It's just a balancing nightmare, this patch.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will rebound off you with, dude, is a lot of the hyper armor is in fact overtuned on a lot of specific examples, like namely when you have a hyper armor matchup, right, and both of the players can just walk up to each other and mash their full R1 chain and neither party gets staggered, right? Like that makes for bad gameplay, and that is very unfortunate that is the case currently. I think, of course, I would think, like, what do you guys think about that? Like, that's not just me, right? That feels bad.
I have no interest in playing Greysword at the moment. Yeah, like hyper armor setup, because it just looks so. I think one thing that might be a little bit of a hot take for me is, honestly, even if someone has like abused hyper armor a lot, I think hyper armor is a more offensive system in general than like passive poise, because it's an extremely frustrating experience to just have someone always walk through absolutely, like, at least if there's poise strip or something, there's like something that you're like building towards, and the way hyper armor is currently implemented, the fact that it heals your poise health over and over too, like, you're just a constant tank. And I mean, like, there's a while back last year on ladder where there's one specific point where like pickaxe was solid just because of like how poise was set up at that time. And like, Devin's better than me, and we had one match that I played against him where I think it ended up he kept going for extensions until eventually he won, and it was like 25 to like 23 or something. And I was just on pickaxe, and what he was trying to do is figure out how to attack into pickaxe. And the answer was that you don't. You just can't press a button. Or I also press the button and you lose. And I don't really like that gameplay loop. And that was one thing that, like, even when I was using a lot of hyper armor weapons, like if I'm using Greatsword, it's this thing where it gets really frustrating when someone realizes how to invalidate your weapon, because they can't attack into you because you just win the trade, and you can't hit them and force them to respect you because your weapon's slow and reactable. And it's a frustrating gameplay loop that happens once players like realize that's how they can do it, and then suck it up and start doing it, because like that doesn't happen a lot, but when it finally does, you just have to switch weapons. You're just chasing after someone who's just walking away, and you don't have anything to do.
I will just very quickly interrupt because we do have other questions that we may continue this another time, or maybe if there's some time at the end, we might continue on with it. But so obviously, rule sets are a game. You are basically setting up there's several. How do I put this? Let me think of this for a second. So there's a couple of ways to look at rule sets. One of it is to try and get people to basically play in a certain way. It's about encouraging certain play styles. The other one is that you're trying to encourage some kind of skill-based idea, and the other one then is for entertainment value of all of the people, right? That's like the holy trinity. You try and compromise between all of those three in order to get a good rule set. But what did you guys focus on as being all part of the rule set committee in one way or another? What did you guys focus on in terms of making the rule set? We can actually take just a very quick peek at the rule set itself. I was actually quite surprised. It's very, very lax. Is there any highlights in it while I bring this up? What you guys are kind of like, anything that's in particular that you're interested in having? on the current rule set, and what was the overarching plan? We'll start with Bron behind the rule set stuff.
Basically, we wanted to make. Yeah, first of all, I wanted to make the game playable, because as it was, it just wasn't playable, because you would like accept a challenge and not know if your opponent was playing a normal setup or BHS Stomp Claimants. So yeah, we started shaving from the top. We knew right away spears were broken, so we just got rid of all of them basically and left the shittiest one, and it's still probably the best setup in the game. Then we also knew we needed to do something about Thrusting Sword, because yeah, just how the weapon works, all these poise breaking with the first hit, it's just way too hard to play against and way too easy to play with. So we also took out the top 3, and now we leave Rogiers, which for me I think it's the fine power level for Thrusting Sword to be at.
Mm-hmm.
We got rid of Mogs and 3 Spears, because yeah, 3 Spears 4-shot, even with the runes, and Mogs have the bleed, and now the Ash is really broken, because you can kill someone and they can't do anything, all they can do is backstab it. You cannot stun Mogs Ash unless you're using like Colossal or some ridiculous thing, like nothing works, because each of the Nihils gives you new hyper armor.
Yep. It's definitely interesting.
I will say you can still jumping R2 it.
Does that break?
With what?
Yes, it does. I was testing it last night with a homie. Yeah.
What
on
were you
109.
using?
He was on 109, and I found that two-handed jumping attacks from almost everything breaks it still. Even like Shamshir,
Really?
even the
How
light
much
weapons.
is it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because PSSS, like jumping L1 is 400 poise damage,
Right.
and
Yeah.
Space Tank 2 of them.
Right. Yeah. The jumping L1 is in between the jumping R1 and jumping R2, but
it's like
yeah, the jumping R2s
800.
have significantly more. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, well, we heard it here first. Is there anything else, Bron, just before we pass the mic?
Yeah, we got rid of Rot, because now everything poise breaks, so there's a lot of setups they can just spam running R1 and just have to dodge, and they get free Rot. And we banned Godskin on power stance setups, which I'm not a fan of. It should be either everything or nothing.
Gotcha. Okay, and we'll pass on to Frosty, and then we'll just have a quick overview of the actual rules themselves. So, Frosty, what were you What was your mindset going into making these particular sets of rules? And is there any kind of highlights for it for you in terms of what got the hammer and what didn't?
Like Bron mentioned, obviously, well, it was weird for me because like I was actually one of the folks that was advocating for Quickstep to be actually kept, but because the recovery cancel with the iframes, if you actually make use of the recovery cancel, then you automatically get roll caught every single time. But of course, like Quickstep is still very much problematic in the respect of latency, and it just becomes a little too much. And obviously, even like if you whiff your punish or something like that, you can just do it for free, and then you're still completely out. But it would have been cool to see honest Quickstep, because this is the closest iteration of that we've ever seen in the series, which is very cool. But yeah, and obviously like BHS was very it's the distance is still BHS, an issue. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but yeah, I understand why all of those still have to go, but it is sad because I think the prospect of a balanced Quickstep is very, very cool, But
go on. Really, oh, sorry. Is it's so little on Quickstep, the actual thing now, and it's on the cancel windows of things where it's like, me and Amir did some testing a while back of like doing it with weapons on like different like how much recovery is like unpunishable and different things, and like and because it scales on latency, and it was around like on our ping, which is about 110, about here, sorry, 1 second.
No worries.
No. Well, we'll get Frosty to have this opportunity to finish his thoughts, and then we will move on to Jelly in a second.
Yeah. but yeah, those two, you know, they were obviously rightly so to be banned. But the one thing that was interesting to me was like I was because during the rule set meeting, the if I recall correctly, at least this is like I vividly remember seeing this. Like the vote for banning Offstock entirely was like 9 votes to 2, right? Which would imply that it was getting passed. But being that the polls were open for 24 hours, obviously 2 more people changed their mind about it. And that's why I was kind of baffled when I saw the rule set changes. I was like, where's the thrusting sword ban, right? In the offhand. And then yeah, that was very baffling to me. But lo and behold, I look back at it and, you know, makes sense. So I don't know, and like either way, in relation to the Offstock ban, like I think it's fine, honestly. Like to allow it in its restricted state. I don't think it becomes like overly problematic, especially with all of the other things that are very, very strong now. You know, and with hyper armor being as good as it is, for a trading tool against those things. So yeah, I'm interested to see what people do with the restricted Offstock, and going forward, I think it's gonna create an interesting dynamic for sure. And like once again, with these, you know, relatively lax overall with the changes that were made. I think like Bron had mentioned, you know, like the rot grease ban, you know, because all of the light weapons, light quick weapons break in one hit. It became far too oppressive. I definitely agree with that. And obviously, you still have a rot.
Yeah, pardon? Could you repeat that? Just it kind of mumbled on my end. What did you say there, Poke?
Stone Club.
Yeah,
was hilarious.
Yes,
and Rock Grease was already strong before.
Yeah. So like that's a prime example of it too. And also just a side note, and I'll pass the torch here. But yeah, like I did want to mention this, just to play off what I was talking about before, with the hyper armor being overtuned across the board. This is something that definitely needs to be tweaked. I feel like the hyper armor system needs to function in a tiered system, right? Where like colossal swords and colossal weapons would be A tier, the great weapons would be B tier, and then within those tiers, say it was CGS, which is B tier, those weapons would not be able to tank themselves or anything above it, right? So that system definitely needs to be implemented, because in its current state, you have very, very egregious examples, like I mentioned earlier, with 2 great weapon mirrors just mashing into each other, and neither party gets staggered, right?
Insert that Demon Souls gif of Luber. Get that of Luber just mashing into the other guy and getting stunned. But I will ask you to hold whatever future thoughts, just as we have Jelly back. Very quickly, Jelly, before we do crack on with you, my dear friend, my brother in herding cats. Let me see if I can get the rules set up here real quickly. We'll just go over some of the basic stuff. So obviously Light Roll is banned. Obviously the Icon and Briar and Royal Remains are still gone. That just makes a degree of sense. The healing incantations, absorption, increasing incantations, your livers, your boiled crabs, all of that is still gone. That's more or less unchanged. I think this section here is more or less unchanged. Would I be right in saying that, or was there any new additions that have really kind of, obviously Storm Stomp wasn't gone when I was back in my day of 3 months ago. We could caveman stomp away to our heart's content. But yeah, it seems that's gotten the hammer. I think that was a couple of that was a patch ago as well, wasn't it? If memory serves.
Stomp has been gone. It's been gone a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been long since like January.
Oh,
something
well,
like that.
Apparently I wasn't playing Ladder Legal then. Let's go. But either way, we move now on to the
cheater.
So true. Power Stance Spears then. When we look at Power Stance Spears, obviously Spear Tally is gone. All except only short spears are allowed. That's interesting that even any spear was allowed on, to be honest with you. Now, obviously, with great spears, we have the spear tally is gone as well. We're seeing a trend. Tree spears, Mogwins, and the Mogwins Sacred Spear. I didn't even know that was its full name. And there you go. We learn something new every day. Thrusting Swords, Clean Rot, S-Stock, and the Nobles S-Stock are all gone completely, which is interesting. And then katanas just have spinning slash on the kiba. So this is a very, very concise rule set, I have to say. I was not expecting this at all. But Kjell, seeing as you're the person who's going to have to watch them run around for a bit, what was your thoughts going into the rule set meeting, and how did you approach coming to the ban list that you did come to?
Blindly with a dartboard. Well, I think there's a couple of things on here. Like, things were floated with, thrusting swords in their entirety or spears in their entirety, and it's nice to try and keep, like, I'll say one thing from a tournament side, to keep the game a little bit more to like what like people play in vanilla. So it's spears are a thing in the game. They're very strong. Everyone knows them, and it would feel a little bit bad if they were just completely gone entirely. So short spears being the only thing allowed is definitely an attempt to see if restricted down to this level, to the absolute worst spear, if they're still too much. And they may well be, because was messing, like, even in the meeting a lot of times we're messing around in game to try and like try things out, and like short spears they're still spears. they still have the same moveset. They still do a ton of damage.
Yep.
And like we'll see what happens with thrusting swords, but like it's very strong in the main hand with Shieldpoke. It's very strong offhand, obviously. Right now, two-hand thrusting sword was good before the patch. It didn't exactly get worse, and it's down to Roger, which is like much lower damage. It has pretty much about the same range as the other three, but like shittier stat requirements and shittier damage. But beyond that, really we're kind of gonna see how things develop. But I encourage everybody to make me miserable in running these events, as I just watch everybody shield poke themselves, and then we'll begrudgingly be like, all right, we get it.
Oh my god. It might be like, even if Shieldpoke is balanced in the greater scheme of things, if I see one Shieldpoke mirror, it's over. Like, you don't understand. We'd have to ban all regen period to make that
is
not last 20 minutes.
Another thing that was added in, I think this was added in a while ago. Sorry to interrupt you, Kjell. I'll give you an opportunity to finish up just a second. But the swaddling cloth, when was that decision come to? That was made a while ago as well, wasn't it?
No, swaddling cloths have been talked about. It pretty much it's always been a little bit, but ever since the great runes have started being allowed, there's been discussion about swaddling cloth, just because of how much, like, you have more health to have the match last longer, so it'll proc more, and every time it procs, it heals for more. So it is something that on setups that can make use of it. It's everybody runs Crimson Amber +2, and it ends up providing a lot more health than Crimson Amber +2.
Okay.
And so this was this is what ended up being settled on, where it's on power stance, but because that's the thing that abuses it the most. But I mean, it's mostly just in general how much health it gives you anymore. Okay. Because matches go long. Great runes.
Gotcha. And you can feel free, by the way, to finish your thoughts. Thoughts. Sorry, excuse me. The Irish in me came out there, but we'll keep it down. If you have any more thoughts there, they'll finish them up, and then we'll move on to poke.
I never have thoughts. Don't worry about it.
Well, I understand. I've been there, done that. Worn the jacket, but Shieldpoke then. What was your approach in putting together the rule set, and are there any highlights for you?
I'm gonna be real.
You're gonna be real.
I wasn't there for the meeting. I was grinding League of Legends, but I did come in after. I reviewed it. I'm like, okay, let me put in my vote, because I'm a what do you call it, upstanding citizen, right? And then I did throw in my comment at the end. I thought banning offstock was kind of silly. Banning offstock as a whole was kind of silly, because honestly, like, the bottom three offstocks, even if shaving off the top three wasn't enough, we could always go down to like Frozen Needle. Who are these weapons? You know what I mean? Like,
listen, kickflip kills are very cool though. Can we at least admit that much?
Even rapier is unusable. Just jumping in for a bit, like you cannot use rapier. You just lose.
Yeah. So I'd rather not ban the whole setup, just because it's fine. I'm sure you could play into like Frozen or whatnot with that. And what else was on the rule set? Rock Grease had to go. Jesus, I mean, a lot of the. To be honest, there's a lot of things that are a long time coming. As in, we discussed them for a while, but honestly, the rules were in such a good state for 1.09. Like, like the rules committee was in retirement. You know what I mean? This this whole patch was a good excuse to like, okay, Godskin, that was kind of of bullshit the whole way through. Like Power Stance was abusing that 10 times harder. Like Pisses 3-tap hitting. I watched Braun vs. Servant, like literally Godskin Simulator. It was amazing.
Fun fight.
Yeah.
GG though. For real.
Yeah, and then what else was there? Was there anything else that's been? Oh yeah, spears. All the spears were short spears. I mean, Jesus. I don't know how they managed. Like, we joke about how hasn't spears been fucking nerfed for 10 patches in a row. They managed to buff them. Genuinely incredible. What else was there? What else was here?
I want spears to never get touched. Just to keep the meme going.
Yeah. But I think the reason the rule set is so short, because a lot of it was clogged up before by poise restrictions. Right, like, let's see what else. What else was like particularly restricted? I don't think. I mean, it's mostly just the poise restrictions, right? That really. Also, they of course their power stance grade spears. Pretty much making like rule lists, like how it already was for us.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, I think the rules are in a good spot. I think it's probably the best you could do. I was obviously very wary. Like a big topic that came up always was like 88 poise, 67 poise, like all these limits. And I really don't think. I think there's more problems that come with that than there are benefits to be gained, if there are any, anyways.
So we're gonna do the same as before. If you have any thoughts or you have anything to comment on each other's, or just things you would want out of the rule set itself, I guess. Now is the time to do it. I will need the restroom real quick, so I'm gonna. Jelly?
Yes.
You are herding these cats until I get back. Make sure they have manners.
All right. What do you guys want from the patch outside of, to go subscribe to the den and support the scene?
I'll be back in
there
a moment.
It is.
The patch?
Yeah.
Like what I want for next patch? Fix these Ashes of Wars. Fix the hyper armor. Make the follow-up R1's poise break. And you know what? I think we have a perfectly good game.
Why do you want follow-up R1s to poise break?
Why do I want follow-up R1's to poise break? So you don't have to do... So, like, for example, if you're playing Sword Mode, right? You mentioned earlier that you have a bunch of options, but every option you mentioned was a counter-aggression option. We need to make it so pressuring is easier after you get your advantage. Ideally, what I'd like is that for hit stun to be longer. Ideally, that's what I'd like. But I don't know if Fromsoft would do that, because I'm pretty sure they use like hit stun stuff for other things in the game, like PvE and stuff. I think that would be very annoying. You know. So I realistically, I think it's there's too much counter aggression in the game, and there's not enough aggression. And like as a passive player myself, I wish it wasn't like this.
I'll say one thing: being at a health disadvantage feels a little worse now. Where, like, when you do get your hits, because of the options for pressing your advantage being lower, like there are a lot more things. Like, if they mash back and you're trying to hit them, like things can turn into trades more. Where you need to be really careful when you're at a health disadvantage.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
I just want these roll-ins to stop. Like, the game is just not fun when you're just both rolling into each other with unreactable crouching attacks. Either make like the rolling attack not stun, but then you run into other problems. It's just awful, just rolling into each other. Like, it's not fun to just roll into each other.
It's weird because, like, you talk about the roll-ins all the time, Bron, and I think there's validity to it, And it's just it's interesting that has become like so strong now as a result of these changes, where it was completely useless before. You know what I mean?
It wasn't useless. There were moments where you could do it.
Right.
But
yeah.
like now it's just your best option. Like your opponent attacks you, you're an thrusting sword. Like why would you try to dodge away? You can just roll in with the 8 frame attack.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's completely fair. Obviously, the speed on certain rolling attacks are, questionable. Like you mentioned,
like
but
it's almost every good setup has a broken crouching attack.
I mean, yeah, that's been the name of the game since release of the game, unfortunately. But now I feel like that's not nearly as problematic when it's type 1 hit stun. You know what I mean? Though, like. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Like I've always had an issue with the Vortex setups, strictly like PSGS, because the aggressor had every single advantage, and people call it a 50-50, but that would imply that you have more than one option, and you don't.
You can jump.
No, you cannot.
You can jump roll-ins, but then you're like. If they just walk away, they can punish your landing. No, you're talking about Vortex, yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so yes, yeah, you can jump the roll-ins, right? Like that's
you can.
That's really sick. You know,
but
like the fact that you have an option, you know.
You can't even punish. Like for example, with Whip, you jump them and your attack is too slow. Like people are saying Whip is good. Whip is probably the worst weapon in the game.
Why do you say that?
I mean,
like it's a 16 frame attack that can be rolled in on, and your jump doesn't even work. You jump their attack, and your jump attacks are too slow to punish them.
Yeah, that's fair. And like this loops around to the overarching issue, right? Is the extraordinarily low recovery in Eldenring in particular.
So
right? Like that. Yeah.
That's actually to go back. Oh, sorry. You go, Poke.
So I've had like a mini discussion in Twitch chat with Gabriel a bit here. I think the problem right now is how I would play the game before, right? Into the setups like Power Sense Straight Swords or Thoracic Sword or whatever. And you would use you could use fat weapons like Halberd or CGS, and you would take your you would take the L on the initial trade, right? And you try to convert that into a little mix-up.
Right.
And that's how I played. Like if I wanted to play the other side of the match. I'm usually on the other opposing side, right? And that's how I play. And if the recovery on these attacks, like on Thrusting Sword, on Spears, on PSSS, was reasonable, I would agree that aggressing was easier.
Yeah,
would be easier.
For sure.
But it's not. These recoveries are completely out of line. To whip punish these, like even excluding latency, it's incredibly difficult to whip punish these weapons, and cleanly convert. Like the only time it's easier to cleanly whip punish is if they L1 2 times. Basically, it's easier now to punish someone aping in neutral, but if they throw out one attack, it's about the same difficulty as it was before. Except this time they poise break you have no hope at all. So you're basically just throwing keep out, and your aggression options they're not buff dispatch. And everything you're saying, Frosty, is a counter aggression measure. What they managed to do is they completely nerf monkey mashing, which is good, I think.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, I agree.
But I think the game needed more aggressive options. And that's why I would advocate for R1's follow up, because that's just default advantage.
I'm going to quickly jump in, and just very quickly, Frosty, and then I'll give you an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the core loops of Eldenring, I would argue that the prime core loop of Eldenring is if DS3 was spacing the video game or neutral the video game, Eldenring ideally should be mix the video game. That is where it shines. You have a lot of options. You have numerous ashes. You have your R1s, your R2s. You now have in L1s in certain situations. You even have you have jumps, you have crouches. You have a lot of options. That is ultimately what the game should be about, and anything that improves that core loop should be good. But the problem now is it seems to have, now again, it's early days, we're still figuring stuff out, and there's people still experimenting, but it seems to have guaranteed to have taken away one of those options, which is your second R1. That is now just not really an option you go for anymore. It can be spaced out, there's counter aggression tools, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Has it maybe slightly, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but has it improved the other options that you do have? But it's still simplified those, because it boils down to, does it have range? It still goes back to that holy trinity. The range, moveset, and then damage. That is the holy trinity of a setup in these games.
Yep.
And that's how it works. And it's simplified even that, because now you can't poise anything really out of it, because they can just walk out, they can just skitter away and then come back in for a punish, right? So I think that it's changed the loop a little bit. I'm not sure if that's for the better. We will see. We will see as people find more funny things to do, like barbaric roar R2s, because they're very funny. Because they're very funny. But Frosty, excuse me, I just wanted to clarify.
No, it's all good, dude. Thanks.
My perspective.
Yeah. Thanks for giving your take, dude. Really do appreciate it. One thing I did want to say too is, like, everybody's advocating for the follow-up R1s, right, to break. I'm not so inclined as to agree with that, because everything that I've just listed here, like my list that I created, dude, I'm sure you guys recall. All of those things, if the follow-up R1s broke, all of those things would be invalidated and they would not exist. The only reason everything that I've listed already exists is because the follow-up R1s don't. And this is the thing here that I really want to stress, is that with everything that I've listed, it's not only options that the player that secures hit stun is able to do afterward, but it's what the opponent can do after getting hit as well, right? And this dynamic did not exist before in any capacity. And that's what I really want to stress and hone in on, because I feel like a lot of the people advocating for the follow-up R1s to break, yes, you do retain your aggression, but at what cost? Look at everything that was made possible by the changes with the R1 degradation system being implemented, and all of the options that we now have from both the defender's perspective and the aggressor's perspective, right? All of these things are absolutely incredible, and you're actually able to formulate thoughts instead of just mindlessly mashing R1 because it's the only best option that you have. That was the game before this update. And now, when you land a hit, you're like, oh my god, I have like 13 things that I can do. But also, I have to be cognizant of there's 13 things that my opponent can do as well. And all of these things, it creates this amazing back and forth dynamic. And Shieldpoke, one thing that I did want to say in relation to answer your question that you proposed before, where what does the recipient that got hit, their best option, you said, is just to disengage every single time, right? Or walk backward, right?
Yeah. It's mostly optimal, unless you have an insane read for some reason.
Right. See, and that didn't exist before, and that's a potentiality now, right?
It completely existed before.
Didn't
What?
it exist?
Yeah,
I mean,
you're saying that
what?
the
maybe I
second
misunderstood the
R1 was
question.
always used like Halberd, CGS, like they had poise breaks and they didn't play like spamming R1. You had all your other options.
There were outliers in that regard. Yes, I agree, but it's much more expanded. Okay, yeah, I should have rephrased, right? So there's so much more depth in relation to that now, and also I just wanted to give this as an answer to that. The best option for that player is to disengage, but look at what that's done. The person who aggressed just won that encounter. Is that not rewarding the aggressor, right?
I mean, you could do the same thing before, though. Like,
yeah,
if you just hit them and you roll, if both players choose to disengage, that's the same thing as it was before, except right. But the problem is, right, when you it's not. Well, that's not even true, actually, because there are setups you could pressure with before, so that's not even true. But now there's okay, So you said there's a concept, right? If there's 13 options and they're all answered by one solution, there's not 13 options. You know? Like, look, backstep, block, guard counter, all of this is all an answer to mashing. But none of it scratches walking backwards. So again, yes, there is.
Can you not like just go for a roll catch then?
Roll catch on what weapon?
On their disengage.
Yeah, on what? Like, can you give me an example?
Is that not possible across the board?
No, it is
anything?
Possible.
Okay, again, it is then.
It's harder. No, it's harder to go for roll catches now than it was before. Because again, keep out is stronger. Because recovery is low, and you poise break on every hit. And your roll, and if you have an absurd roll attack, you can do that too. Because now those poise break too. And
your second attack isn't an option, so like, why would they panic roll after hits?
And also keep in mind, Ashes of War in the game, and they're way stronger on the defensive stance than this defensive side than they are on the offensive side.
Yes,
if you try to attack
that is a problem.
You get obliterated. Yep. So these three things combined, it's incredibly hard to actually engage.
But then it just all comes down to actually reading what your opponent is going to do, right? And that first and foremost is what I enjoy so much about this update, right? I think read heavy gameplay and predicting what your opponent is going to do next and reacting accordingly with a plethora of different options, I think that is only healthy for the state of the game. And prior, with you having one be-all end-all solution, that being mashing, I don't think that was healthy. That's the way I see it. We have more options than we ever had.
I'm trying to think.
I think we
just before we crack on, I just want to say I'm trying to think of a situation where mashing was that bad, with the exception of maybe like something like Storm Stomp or that, right? Because someone would just like Storm Stomp out of it, whatever, and they might Storm Stomp back, and then maybe there's a quick exchange of L1s. But if I look at the tournaments, especially the most recent ones from the last patch, spacing mattered a lot. One of the things that I commented on, maybe shouldn't have during the tournament, is that players are playing particularly passively. Much more passively than they were before, which is seemingly, from what I've seen in this patch, is going to be encouraged ever further. So I'm not entirely sure where the mashing was come from. Occasionally, you might get a clean rot player who come in and just mash relentlessly, or a PSSS mirror, but they usually get knocked out relatively early. Because the exact same thing applies. Your damage is the thing that you're worried about, so you're going to roll out and try and reset to neutral and find another opportunity to get in. I could be seeing things wrong, but from the tournaments that I've watched over the course of the last year and a half, the mashing problems seem to be kind of more of a lower level issue, which might be probably good to fix, but I don't think the answer is making the game perhaps as passive as it is going to be now. But I could be wrong. I defer to your guys' judgment on that one. That's me personally.
Yeah, it says space set right now. I mean, you hit someone once and then you run away.
I will ask that Poke gets an opportunity to finish up though.
Right. So Frosty, sorry, I was responding to something that you said. My memory's a little bit fuzzy right now. What was the thing that you said right before I was going to say? Oh, right. Right, I was going to say that, yes, there are 13 options, but if they're all 13 options, say right, you have 13 options and you have a 14th option, right? You have 14 total options, and if 13 of those are to counter aggression, and one of those is for actually aggressing, how do you think the game will unfold? In terms, it will be 100% more passive.
I don't necessarily see it that way. I see it as performing a hard read, right? It all comes back around to that, and that was my closing statement with what I had mentioned, right? Was that the game is way more read heavy now and prediction heavy than it ever has been, like almost even more so than previous games. And I think that shift is better for the overall health of the PvP scene. And one thing that I do want to say as well, because Enda capped off his statement with the game becoming more passive as a result of this, and I don't necessarily agree with that either, because Eldenring has systems in place that incentivize aggression more so than any of the previous Souls games have.
Like, what do you mean?
I mean, crouching, jumping. I mean, all of these different things. The lower hit stun levels on neutral attacks. You know, like all of these things. You know, they play a significant factor in all of this. You know,
crouching doesn't inherently make your aggression better. Actually, I would argue it can make your aggression worse because you're slower when you crouch, right? So I think that's what a lot of people don't abuse very well against like crouch setups like PSGS and Neutral Hunter, is if they crouch at you and they're sprinting, they're slightly slower than your sprinting speed. So you can't actually catch up to them if they run away. Another thing, jumping, a lot of jumping attacks aren't that great, I'll be honest. Like they're just kind of like, I feel like when I use jumping attacks, which is very rarely by the way, I guess, it feels more like it's more like an are you an awake check. I don't consider like I have no follow up from a jump attack. I guess is the other issue with that. And what's the last thing you said?
The hit stun levels.
Hit stun. Sorry, how does that affect aggression in this game, in your opinion?
It's well, I guess the pretense is that it's lower from Dark Souls 3, for example, right? So like you're actually incentivized, because like in Dark Souls 3, for example, you were actively disincentivized from using anything else other than your neutral R1s and neutral R2s, because all of the other attacks, like the running R1s, right, yeah, and you would actively lose priority. So like running attacks are better than they ever have been too, like especially like on light weapons now, like that's par for the course as to why Rot Grease got banned, right? In the rule set is because the quick weapons with them breaking on every hit, like it can be very oppressive, and that's another, significant one. But yeah, dude, I don't know. And obviously, it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of personal preference when it comes to all these things. But me personally, man, I enjoy the more read-heavy centric play.
And you're fully within your right to as well. Just to keep in mind, this has been a pretty contentious patch. But very last words, Poke, and then we're gonna have to move very very swiftly along. You kind of covered ground that I wanted to cover, so literally the last word goes to Poke because you opened it first.
As Luber said, I would also agree that I don't think I'm making any more reads than I was before, to be honest. Like, maybe it's a difference in playstyle.
Maybe you're playing it wrong.
I'm still winning, so I don't know. I'm doing the same. I'm not kidding. In terms of playstyle, I don't think I've changed even a single bit, and I'm performing better just because the patch favors my playstyle.
Yeah.
I think playing low risk as hell, like me, it's gonna be more beneficial. I've only started winning more. Like, I don't feel the need to just do anything because my spacing, my neutral, those are my strengths, right? Those are the things I consider myself best at. And if first contact is the most important part of the game now, as it is in my opinion, then just playing passive, playing chill. If they hit you, just walk away. Because they have 13 options. None of them work on walking backwards. They have to go for the roll catch option. That's all you have to worry about. That's it. So I'm just playing super low risk, and it works out for me. And if that's it, I'm fairly confident that's the optimal playstyle. Now, if someone's playing aggressive
passivity always has been,
Right. But I'm just saying
always.
Passive is better now than it was before. And I feel like an optimized tournament play, which by the way is not true for casual play. I want to mention, I think like you can. I think it's great they can punish like people who are aping out invasions and shit now. That's cool. That's good in my opinion. So honestly, from a broad perspective, I think this patch was a win, right?
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I think casual players are a lot more happy with this. But I would probably say with an 80-90% certainty that comp play is not going to be as happy with this patch as most players will be. Because again, people don't play passive in casual.
So here's weirdly enough, we managed to get into the ground here from my final question. So I think what we'll do is the final question was just what do you think player behaviors are going to look like, and I think we've more than covered that. I don't know, do either Bron or Kjell have any closing thoughts on that? Just we didn't get to go through the list of what people thought. So if either of you have any thoughts on player behaviors moving forward under the new rule set specifically, do you have anything that you'd like to add just as we finish up and chat? If you guys have any questions for any of our guests or the entire crew, we have time for just some very, very quick questions. So I'll let you. We can go forth on that. So if you have any questions, use the channel points to highlight message, and I'll try my best to go through as many of them as we can before we finish. We want to keep this well under 2 hours. So, Bron and Mr. Jelly, do you have any thoughts on player behaviors moving forward before we finish up? Whichever of you wants to chime in first.
I don't have any. Yeah, okay. I don't have like anything special. I can say just from my experience, it's been way less fun and a lot more coin flippy.
I hope player behaviors go support us on twitch.tv/network. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, there you go. This is a community-supported project. Please do. Yeah, there you go. You'll get the whole quote. You'll get the whole quote. Yes, don't worry. But we do have one question here.
I'll become as good a sellout as you.
We do have one question here from Foolish Meta. Can we address the weird shit like offhand, one-handed GS having hyperpoise, but not one-hand main hand? Is there any like comments on whether or not
that's just like this
clearly unintentional?
Weird. Yeah, like for the most part on that one specifically, if you look at like the frame data for the one-handed moveset, they pretty much copy-pasted that onto the offhand with like a couple things that might be changed on like some weapons. For Great Spear, they copied the two-hand for some reason. So it has all the two-hand properties, all the two-hand cancel windows, and that includes the hyper armor two-handed gets. Why is it like that? But they probably just copy-pasted the wrong call.
Do you think that opens up any good options for those setups, or is it just kind of like just flat out broken and should probably be gotten rid of? Do you think it's an interesting choice, or how are we feeling on it, folks?
Well, it's one of like kind of mentioning earlier that this game isn't in a sense designed like we're playing a fighting game within it, but it's not designed the way fighting games are. I think if you were to approach it from that base, like, you know, building one-handed move, like offhanded move sets to like, you know, fill holes that you're intentionally leaving in one-handed move sets, so you can like pick and choose and they're balanced according to that. I think that is something that is absolutely possible within the game system, but you would need to do a pass with that in mind, as opposed to just, you know, how it is now, where it's just like, oh, it has this properties just because they copy pasted the wrong column, not because it is supposed to do this and it's bound.
Yeah, exactly.
How good an offhand hyper armor should be.
And another question: is there any closing thoughts on that? Anyone have anything else to comment other than unintentional?
It falls under that, so I guess I'll just hold my tongue.
No, you can speak.
No, I don't know. This is something that's very weird to me, because like people are defending the clearly unintentional interaction with power stance weapons that hit at the exact same time. It was a very similar thing, like Kjell just mentioned, with the offhand lance having hyper armor. It's quite literally the exact same thing, because Fromsoft they actually did the poise degradation system properly with all of the power stance weapons that hit like non-simultaneously, right? But it was an oversight when implementing the degradation with the weapons that hit simultaneously, aka it's 81 and 81, and that works perfectly fine for passive poise tanking with weapons that don't hit at the same time. But with PSSS and power stance spears and power stance curve swords, both of those are exceeding the obtainable amount of passive poise, that being 133, and it's 81 and 81, which obviously is far too high, right? So like those things like that, you know, like that's a clearly unintentional change, right? The fact that the follow-up L1s can break subsequently, like did not intend for that to be the case, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah. Thank God they messed up then. Because it's like it's the only setup that people can't roll in on you.
But okay, we have another question here.
Actually, doesn't thrusting still prevent roll in? Because you can R1 block cancel R1 and interrupt it.
Yeah, there's
No,
R1 block
I
cancel
don't
setups. Yeah,
think
yeah.
it will interrupt.
Well, there's a bunch of
probably.
one-handed light weapons if you're running like a shield, too, like where you can keep out the rolling or the roll-ins, right? Yeah.
So
I was testing that actually last night.
Oh,
I found
nice.
a ton of interactions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what's the next question?
The next question then is from Vumsy. Obviously, a lot of things need to be nerfed next patch. Anything you'd like to see buffed? That's a good question, actually. I'll have to have a think about that. Is there anyone else who'd like to chime in?
Well, we definitely know what needs to get nerfed, first and foremost. No, I think.
Can we buff spears?
Oh my god!
Please, dude. No, I think genuinely, the vast majority of weapons that were underperforming prior was a result of passive poise existing. And the fact that a lot of the more off-meta picks now do break in one hit, that was quite literally the only thing that they needed, right? So I think this patch brought a lot of that lower-end stuff that was actually completely unusable beforehand up to par, which I think is incredible. And it was a cool blanket change that actually buffed the vast majority of underperforming things. But obviously, I'll be the one to say it. Flails need like an entire moveset rework, dude.
Yeah.
There's no amount of lowering the recovery or speeding it up that will ever make them good. Like this is just a pipe dream, dude. But I wish From would have like the unique Ash of War, the spinning chain or whatever that flails get. By default, it allows you to like swing it with an active hitbox and walk forward while you do it. That should have been what the base R2s were able to do by default. You know what I mean? Like, I wish they would just... There needs to be some sort of rework to them, because it's so sad that they're just worse hammers,
From my perspective...
They could have been so much more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the way that I kind of look at setups in general. Maybe more so last patch. I don't really know enough to be able to comment on the current patch, but last patch, I wished more things worked, like Shamshir and Katana. That would have elevated so many setups. The problem is that was purely dependent on ghost hits existing. So you could constantly poise, break people, and keep them in that, like, so you were being rewarded.
Yeah, the dangerous range.
You were constantly rewarded for poise counting and keeping people in that specific bracket. And so many setups didn't have that. It's a wonder that they didn't kind of double down on that as a strategy to deal with it as opposed to anything else. But then again, it doesn't seem that these games are encouraging system mastery, so I think even that fact was kind of lost on them, which is unfortunate. But is there any other setups people want to have buffed, or will we move on to the next question?
If nobody else has anything to say, but go ahead if there's more.
No, I don't.
Buff coded.
The meme.
The
dude.
terror of Mag coming back.
Couple frames less on L1.
Only on coded, of course.
No, I did see Orang brought up the power stance axe moveset. Like bring the fucking the wing knight twin axe moveset back.
To win, dude. Holy shit.
Dude, right, dude? No, like that would be
axe moveset the worst in the game.
I would
power
say
stance?
so. Yes.
It probably is.
And that's the worst.
Power stance hammer? I don't know. I haven't seen.
Yeah, no, it's the same. That's what I was just.
Yeah, they're copy pasted. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. They copy pasted the worst moveset for 3 different weapon classes on the power stance, dude. Flails, hammers, and axes all have that terrible one. So like a moveset rework for that in particular would be incredible to see too. Because like the prospect of power stancing fucking axes is sick, dude. And then you do it, and then you're just like. Bumbling around like a fucking idiot, dude. Like, what?
So there's another question addressed to me. Kjell asks, will you marry me? No.
Shit.
You played Greatsword, and now you have to pay for your crimes. So no, this is all on you. Asking for them to be buffed before, I swear to Christ. But thoughts on 108 poise damage from frozen needle projectiles. Caps as X2. How do we feel about the increased poise damage of? I'm not sure who caught Luber's exceptional stream, where he was. I don't even know how to describe what Luber or Kreuz
flaming and loop slinging.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It was catch flame sling. Having the increased poise damage from those. Yeah, exactly. We'll keep this one PG-13 for YouTube, Luber, but exactly. Does anyone have any thoughts on the increased projectile damage from spells and incantations and specifically, or do you think that that's just a bit of an oversight?
Catch flame spam is hilarious. That's all I'll say about that.
They should buff Slicer poise damage so Kieran comes back.
I think those days are done, to be honest with you. I will say it is actually tragic that mages got so badly hit with the chain casting being removed.
Well,
that was so sad.
I agree.
Bring back Bevan Mage.
They took away chain casting and brought him that. Yeah, true. But no, what I like to say in relation to this is they may have removed chain casting, but if the leaks are true about Spellbound, they're making an entire game based around casting. So there you go, dude.
We'll see.
Just gotta wait a little bit longer.
just wait a few years for an entirely different game.
Yeah, dude.
No
it's
problem.
made just for you, dude.
I think honestly, to have one serious comment, I think it's fine that projectiles break in one for the most part.
Yeah,
it just makes them a little bit. You just have to respect
more
them
annoying.
You think there's some things that
it gives them a purpose.
Just the fire rate maybe of something like Stormblade is maybe a little obnoxious, where you kind of just have to wait for them to stop. But
or you just roll in.
or just equip the thrusting sword and roll in on absolutely everything.
All right, but
just one thing real quick, dude, in relation to the frozen needle, dude. It's very sad. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the frozen needle, it doesn't on the R2 cancels, and if you're up close, the cancel doesn't have a melee hitbox, so it doesn't actually do double damage. You don't hit with the blade and the projectile. You literally just hit with the projectile, dude. The weapon is so cool from a design standpoint, but it's so sad that it's underperforming.
And
Wave of Darkness was bugged for half a year. It just didn't have a hitbox on the follow-ups.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think End of the Whip was replaced for a little while with End of the Needle, which is pretty funny. That was a fun week until I realized that I couldn't actually hit anyone with them, but it was very cool when I did. So a little shot of endorphins whenever it lands is definitely something. But Vumsy has one last question. This is the last question for the podcast, and then we'll have the closing out of the podcast. Another question, if that's okay, says Vumsy. I was never a fan of poise counting. Since it's a knowledge check, I just CBA'd with. But that's not a thing anymore. So it's harder to get aggression through hyper armor poise since you can react hyper armor. Most moves doesn't. Sorry, excuse me. However, Frost, Bleed, Sleep, Madness, Puke, Proc fixes the issue in terms of calculating when your next attack will stagger. So I believe you're talking about having these particular things be able to stagger through hyper armor, like the anything that gives you the ability to force them into an animation. Is that true, or is it still contingent on other things? Is the super armor still?
It was better before because you could get double or triple staggers where you wouldn't get them. With Dovstock, you normally would get only a one hit break, but if they were close to Frost, you could get your hit, stun them, hit them again with the Frost, get another hit for free, and then roll out.
Yes.
Now you just get your Frost hit, so it got worse, that entire thing with the status.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that, to answer... go on.
Basically what Bron was saying was if you do the same sequence again, right? R1 and do R1 again and you get Frost proc, yet you would have to block cancel your next R1 to get a poise hit. But to poise break them again for your free hit, but now you have to, the extra block cancel time makes it so you're not safe to do that.
Okay, gotcha. But you can, like, the status counting is way more prevalent now, you know, still too, and it is a viable strategy, which is very cool, especially in the case of,
it was
you
super
know,
viable
like
before.
Yeah, I agree, and it's still like very, very good, especially with the new system, you know, because of the R1 degradation. So you can actually count that and be rewarded for it. But yeah, like answering on the first point of what the homie in chat said there. Yeah, I'm glad that like, don't get me wrong, I like that poise counting and poise chipping was a thing that was unique to Eldenring specifically. It created an interesting dynamic for sure, but also it's a double-edged sword because it makes the PvP in the game so monumentally unintuitive from a new player's perspective. And they're just like, why the hell am I not breaking this guy? Why is there no feedback to me hitting him, right? And then you have to go through and research all of this nonsense for arbitrary breakpoints, you know, just to actually like enjoy the game. It's like, what the hell is that? So like from that perspective, it felt holistically bad, and I think it was so unintuitive, right? And now, from a new player's perspective, just engaging with PvP for the first time, like say they're a, you know, sword and great shield user, dude, straight sword, like before they like stood no chance, dude. They would get walked all over, and now their straight sword is actually staggering people. You know, that's way more intuitive, and I think that's awesome. You know, especially for getting more people into or interested in the PvP side of the game. And once again, I want to loop this back around to why this patch I think is so good from that perspective, because it gets more people interested in playing, and people are able to have, like, the casuals are able to have more fun engaging with this system than they ever would have before. And that is what creates the fucking trickle down effect, you know?
No,
when you get new players, when you get new players interested in loving the game, that's how you get them interested in invasions, in dueling, in particular in the competitive scene, and growing this everything that we're trying to build here and what we all love and enjoy so much about the game. And I think that first and foremost, regardless of how, you know, like how we all feel with our own personal opinions about it, about the like nuance and quirks, that aspect of this update is undeniable, and that is holistically good for the game going forward.
So I just want to, before we do finish up, I just want to kind of double down on that point. Obviously, I'm looking at it from a very skewed, we're all here looking at it from a very skewed perspective. The perspective of, to one degree or another, I'd exclude myself, but I'd definitely say you four here, you are looking at it from past the point of system mastery to a degree, right? You all have tournaments under your belts. You're all, of course, very competent players. And the game is, unfortunately, for better or worse, I think Kjell put it very beautifully earlier on when he says, you know, this is a PvE game that we've that's
sifting through the crumbs for things.
Yeah, we're having to try and piece something together out of all of the noise, and that to a degree is important. But I will 100% caution that perspective. Dueling has become much better. The 1v1s have become much more manageable, much more intuitive. The point where Fromsoft really, really, really needs to be careful is invasions, because the gateway drug to these games, for better or worse, is invasions. I started off invading before I even knew red sign dueling was a thing in all of these games. So that's something that I do think that they need to work on, and that's maybe going to be a conversation for another podcast. You know, I'm taking notes here. You know, you've given me a good idea. But yeah, invasions are definitely going to be the gateway, and I think that it's badly needed. But gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you all in here. Frosty, of course, Kjell, the Snugglepuff, who I've been told by Flues to call you a dummy. I'm very sorry, but this is
What?
deeply. I know, it's horrific. You make some Flues noises there. Make some Flues noises there, and of course Bron as well. All of these I would consider experts in their field. You should definitely go check them out. I'll definitely do some shout outs in a little bit, but thank you all so much. As for me, I'm going to be doing a Bloodborne tournament this Sunday at 5 p.m. It's going to be the EU. I'll have a challenge set up, and join the Discord if you're interested in doing that. And lads, the last words to everyone, and we'll start with Bron. Last words on the cast before we finish up. We'll keep it nice and brief.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thanks for having me. And yeah, hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Frosty.
First and foremost, dude, I also want to say that it was an absolute pleasure to be on this podcast, dude. I had an absolute blast. It was awesome to get some of the more higher ups perspectives in the competitive scene in relation to this patch in particular. Very, very insightful, and much love to you, Shieldpoke, and Bron, and Kjell, dude. It was all awesome chatting with you, dude, and especially you, Enda.
Kjell, do you have any final words?
If you want to check out the FOCs, those are coming up at the end of the month, the 26th and 27th, and then the first tournament under the new rule set this Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what the hell that is for EU. You can figure that out. But yeah, the scene is continuing on. Last month everything was starting to build up speed, trying to keep that going.
Yep, for sure. And then SP Shieldpoke, what do you have to say for yourself?
All right, few things. One, look out for a new video coming out from me this week. The roles video script. You know, I've linked this in this chat. I think it's make it quick, make it snappy, make it educational. You know how it is. Second thing, I'll probably be uninstalling this game, unfortunately, until DLC. Nothing related to patch. I don't hate it that much. I think it's chill, but I've been playing this game too much. I gotta take my government mandated Eldenring break until DLC, because I know if I keep playing now, I'll get burned out forever. So
unfortunate.
That's how I've kept myself in this community for 7 years, or 7 or 8 years, for better for worse. Take frequent breaks, kids.
But the breaks in question are going to League, just to clarify, which is utterly horrifying.
Right, and third, listen, I'm going to play a lot of League of Legends. That's it.
Magnificent.
Making this alive. I'll keep in contact. No, but seriously, I'll still be hanging around the community and such, and I would just be not nearly as active as I was before or anything, but I'll definitely still be around. I won't ghost everyone and anything like that.
Well, dude, that's gonna be sad, dude. I enjoyed competing against you, man. It's always a blast. Well, I look forward to competing with you yet again after the DLC drops, dude. And one thing I did want to say also, Enda, before you round it out, dude, I did want to mention to everybody on the stream currently, I will be commentating a Den hosted Fight Club here in around 3 hours or so. And for any of those who want to come and hang out and have a good time,
I think you got the dates wrong, Frosty. That's
Did
next
I really?
Week.
What?
It's next week at this time.
No way, dude! I was so pumped up, dude. Damn,
host your own, Frosty. Host your own, brother.
Wrong Wednesday,
dude. I could actually. That's a good point, dude. Well, look out for a stream from me, dude. Potentially a Fight Club there. Nonetheless, peace for now.
All right. Yeah,
all right, and thanks again everyone for coming. We're looking to do these once every 2 weeks, where we cover a wide variety of topics, and up unto including all Fromsoft competitive games, so from Demons all the way to potentially Fires of the Rubicon, just depending on that day, week 1 tournament. Ooh, yeah, it's going to be wild. But yeah, we'll be keeping up with that, and somewhere along in the next 2 weeks, I'd imagine, after the first FOC, we'll gather together some players, keep an eye out for player interviews and stuff like that in the future, and it has been an absolute blast. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're probably going to boot up some Bloodborne, because they'll be doing a tournament for that this weekend, and take care, everyone. Chat you in maybe like 5 minutes. Mwah! Bye-bye.